Hello there, it's Rebecca at Flathead Lake State Park. I'm wandering through the woods again, and I'm finding these seemingly random standing dead trees and wondering what could be the cause. Here at Wayfarers, the cause of these standing dead trees is a combination of pests and pathogens, including dwarf mistletoe, bark beetles, and root rot. Dwarf mistletoe is a parasitic plant that feeds off of the host tree. Each dwarf mistletoe species is adapted to infect only a single species of tree. The presence of the parasite causes abnormal growth of clusters of small branches. These are called witches' brooms. Dwarf mistletoe also causes swollen knots and burls on the trunk and branches of infected trees. The parasite is spread by a sticky seed that ejects only a few feet from the mature pod. Therefore, it spreads very slowly. Birds might also spread the seed. Mistletoe does not kill the host tree, but saps some nutrients and water from the host. And if the infection is heavy, it can predispose the tree to other insects and pathogens. The witches' brooms collect more wind, snow, and ice loads in the winter, and the abnormal grains or burl at the base of the infection weakens the strength of the wood, resulting in the brooms being broken off or broken out of the trees. The Douglas fir witches' brooms, whether in the tree or on the ground, contribute to flash fuels and can increase fire hazard in heavily infected areas. However, dwarf mistletoe is not the only organism affecting these trees. Douglas fir bark beetle is a beetle adapted specifically to attack Douglas fir trees. The bark beetle can detect which trees are under stress by the organic compounds evaporating from the tree. Zeroing in on these stressed trees, which are deprived by water by the effects of dwarf mistletoe, root rot, and drought, the adult beetles bore into the tree and tunnel between the bark and wood to lay their eggs. These eggs hatch and larvae feed on the cambium of the tree. The adult beetle and larval galleries girdle the tree and deprive the crown of food and water, thus killing the tree. Root rot is caused by a fungus that kills the roots of the tree, often killing the tree by weakening it so that it is vulnerable to bark beetle attack and wind throw. This becomes a hazard in recreation areas. Douglas fir is especially prone to several species of root rot. The Douglas fir trees here at the park are vulnerable to the combined effects of dwarf mistletoe, root rot, bark beetles, and drought. It is usually difficult to attribute the cause of death to a single pathogen or cause. A combination of these pests and pathogens is almost always present. Additionally, competition for site resources from the abundance of Douglas fir present in the park is stressing the surviving ponderosa pine, causing them to be more vulnerable to bark beetle attack. When a Douglas fir tree dies, the lower limbs persist long after, providing a ladder of dead limbs that allows fire to easily spread into the crown. Forested stands composed of mostly Douglas fir are more prone to severe crown fires than stands composed of ponderosa pine and western larch. When the native peoples and natural fires burned valley sites like Wayfarers regularly, the young Douglas fir were burned, favoring the survival of ponderosa pine and larch. Ponderosa pine and western larch are more resistant to pests and pathogens, so they are better choices for recreation site tree cover. With these things in mind, thinning was prescribed and implemented at Wayfarers in 2005. Their main goal was to leave existing ponderosa pine and remove as many mistletoe-infected Douglas fir as possible, returning the site to the historic stand structure of large, open park-like stand dominated by ponderosa pine, with some Douglas fir. It was determined that this thinning prescription would give the healthier tree more of the light and water and nutrients they need to resist insects and disease attack and become more resistant to wind. Standing dead trees can be an important indicator of the presence of stressors like mistletoe, bark beetles, and root rot. Thinning and frequent low-severity fire can minimize the stressors and help maintain a healthy forest. Thank you for joining me on this Forestry Friday at Flathead Lake State Park.